Please do not let that story go.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Donald Trump's FBI is sweating right now, and it's not hard to see why. A new deep dive report from Roger Sollenberger just dropped, and it's raising some very uncomfortable questions about the Epstein files. According to archived DOJ records from 2019, a woman who accused Trump of sexual assault was interviewed by the FBI and the Department of Justice not once, not twice, but 4 separate times. 4. And here's where it gets strange. If you dig through the Wayback Machine, like Sollenberger did, you can actually see the case reference, interview ID 351.045. It lists interviews dated July 24, August 7th, August 20, and October 16 of 2019. There are mentions of FBI 302 forms. Those are official interview summaries plus notes, intake reports, photographs. But today, most of that material is just gone. Only one interview summary is publicly available. In that one, the woman says she feels uncomfortable discussing Trump and fears retaliation. The rest? Missing. Now remember, this ties back to earlier allegations from the Epstein files, claims that Epstein introduced Jane Doe to Trump, and disturbing accusations followed. Whether you believe those allegations or not, the fact remains, federal investigators considered this witness credible enough to sit down with her 4 different times. That's not nothing. And it gets deeper. Think back to that first mini-release of Epstein documents from the DOJ. In Dataset 8, there was a letter allegedly from Jeffrey Epstein to Larry Nassar, yes, that Larry Nassar, the former USA Gymnastics doctor convicted of abusing hundreds of girls. The letter was disturbing, to say the least. It was supposedly postmarked days after Epstein's death and referenced shared interests. The DOJ quickly rushed out a statement saying it was fake. They claimed the handwriting didn't match, the mailing location didn't make sense, and procedural details were off. Case closed, right? Not quite. Because later, when the FBI's own lab results surfaced, the conclusion wasn't fake. It was basically, we can't determine whether it's real or not because we don't have enough verified handwriting samples from Epstein to compare. Wait, what? You're telling me one of the most documented criminals of the last decade doesn't have enough handwriting samples on file? That's convenient. And if that wasn't enough to raise eyebrows, remember those letters from the CIA and NSA responding to public records requests? The agency said they could neither confirm nor deny whether Epstein had any intelligence connections. Put all of this together: missing interviews, inconclusive handwriting analysis, intelligence agencies declining to comment, and you don't have proof of anything specific, but you definitely have smoke. Now here's where it gets surreal. Dan Bongino, former deputy FBI director, and current FBI director Kash Patel recently hosted a podcast together. Yes, the FBI director and former deputy director co-hosting a podcast.
Everything's a level 10 decision, Cash. A level 10 meaning there's a pardon the language, but a shitty decision and a shittier one. Because if there was a good decision to be made, someone else made it. And then when those decisions, that's every day. I know you know this because I would knock on your door and you'd be like, what now? And I'd be like, here we go again. Like something else will come up. But I just want to put into perspective for folks out there, when that decision can't even be made by me, it goes to you. When it doesn't go to you, it goes like to the president's desk. He's dealing with like level 11 decisions. And that's the thing in DC is that's why the batting average isn't always going to be 1,000. There's no good call to be made or someone else would have made it. There's just really tough decisions where, there's a shit call and a shittier call. And listen, that's what we signed up for. That's how it rolls.
Look, yeah, these are difficult decisions, Dan. That's why you volunteered to jump back in. It wasn't just going to be, hey, we're going to do this job. It's going to be super easy. We're not going to have to make any hard decisions. And we're not going to have to combat a press corps that has largely been biased and full of inaccurate reporting. But we made those decisions collectively in the best interest of the nation. And if we hadn't, then none of this would be true. None of this would be possible. If President Trump had made the hard decisions to allow us and give us the resources that we need and to back the blue and law enforcement and to prioritize working with state and local authorities, then we wouldn't be able to do what we did. But you're right. We had a lot of hard decisions, and that comes with the territory of the job. But once you look outside of the cauldron of Washington, D.C., and this is one of the things that, I'm trying to remind myself of every day. Outside of here, there is a different America than the one that lives in the national capital region. And I try to remind myself every day when making those difficult decisions that you talked about, that we make on a daily basis, that we are making a decision collectively for the rest of America, not just for the minority of people that are living part-time in Washington, D.C., pulling the levers on Capitol Hill and so.
Also,
Totally normal, nothing to see here. These are the same guys who built massive followings hammering the Epstein cover-up narrative for years. Epstein this, Epstein that, who's in the black book, release the files. Now, suddenly the tone is different. Instead of addressing the specific document questions people are asking, they pivot to how hard their jobs are. Tough decisions, level 10 decisions, level 11 decisions, no good options. Just bad and worse. It's a lot of this job is really hard, guys. Meanwhile, people aren't asking for sympathy, they're asking for transparency. And then, almost like clockwork, the conversation shifts to Antifa. Arrest numbers, trials, boogeymen, anything except the thing everyone is actually talking about.
on another related topic, Antifa. I covered earlier in my show today and in yesterday's show how the prior FBI director and the prior President Biden and even Obama had played down the Antifa threat. It's an idea. You and I know that's bullshit. It's not an idea when actual action follows the idea. There was an action product that resulted from said ideas. Also, with the Prairie Land investigation and others, there's been actual action to take down and dismantle this entire ring of people.
You're right. We set out to actually activate intelligence-based operations. This includes Antifa. And Dan, you know this. How many people were arrested related to Prairie Land? We're over 24 federal arrests. We're in the middle of federal trial in 5 of those defendants this week again in Texas. 19 people have been convicted for acts of violence related to Antifa. It's in the indictment. You don't got to believe me or you. Everybody can go read the public indictment. And it didn't just happen there. It happened in Cop City in Georgia, where we had to go rearrest everybody because the state authorities couldn't get their act together to produce the enough information to take that to trial. So we did.
It's political misdirection 101. And what makes it more awkward is the receipts. There are endless clips of these same figures demanding Epstein transparency in the past. Who's on the list? Release the black book. Americans deserve to know.
Please do not let that story go.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black book?
black book?
FBI.
But who? There's
That's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Now that they're in power, it's suddenly complicated. Even some right-leaning podcasters are calling it out. Libertarian commentator Dave Smith, who voted for Trump in 2024, openly said that even if Trump wasn't personally implicated, attempting to suppress or downplay the files would still be indefensible. Others are pointing out that the FBI interviewing an accuser isn't the same as guilt, but it absolutely shows this wasn't some random internet rumor either.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
This isn't about Epstein or 9/11 or JFK or RFK. It is, but it isn't. It's about a bigger thing. If you're lying about that, you're lying about everything. Who's on the Epstein tapes, folks? Who's on those tapes? Who's in those black books? Why have they been hiding it?
And this is something Donald Trump has talked about. The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
Everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
So here we are. Missing documents, inconclusive lab reports, intelligence agencies shrugging, former transparency crusaders now urging patience and understanding. You don't have to jump to conclusions, but you also don't have to ignore the red flags.
The past year has been absolutely incredible. And given that, you're a results guy, obviously we were friends before, but working for you is a completely different experience. You are a results guy. You're a spreadsheets guy. How would you get to a net present value positive with what you're doing? And I'll never forget an Oval Office meeting we had in light of the DC crime numbers today. Hadn't had a homicide in a record amount of time in DC, thanks to your leadership. We're sitting in the Oval Office, and I was talking to you about the homicide rate plunging, and it was only about 3 months into my term there. I said, Mr. President, what we're doing down in Memphis and elsewhere is working. And I'll never forget, I said, we're doing the broken windows, Rudy Giuliani style policing. You looked at me and you said, hey, how do we take this nationwide? And you never, ever let go. You stayed on top of it with me and Cash. You were all over it. You're such a hands-on guy. And it was just so refreshing to work for someone who doesn't get into all the hype and all the nonsense, but cares about the numbers. It's probably your business background or what it is, but amazing job on that.
Nothing could vindicate Donald Trump in this. Even if all the files were released and there's no evidence that Donald Trump did anything, did anything with girls or young girls or anything like that, he still tried to cover it all up. So it kind of doesn't matter. He's not vindicated. This is insane.
And here's what he said again. Here, play this clip.
He did a 180 and said there's no such thing as the Epstein files. It's a Democratic hoax, all of that. And so one of the major themes from then till now, for me, has been like, dude, how can any of you guys still defend Donald Trump?
There's the depreciated asset check where, there's a girl, like Trump's ex-girlfriend being sold from Epstein to Trump. Like, this is a bad look. There's also in the Epstein files, I'll have Griffin pull this up whenever he comes back, is Trump's, one of the accusers was actually interviewed by the FBI. Can we get that? It's in Politicians, Trump accuser interviewed by the FBI. It just came out from Roger Sullenberger, which, by the way, let me just finish the thought there. Yeah. The fact that the FBI did interview a victim who was accusing Trump and then goes beyond an anonymous claim against Donald Trump by a tip line, right? So this was actually one of being interviewed. Again, look, being interviewed is not necessarily a crime, but what we're talking about is a deep social relationship which Trump has never really wanted to acknowledge in his public life, but in the prior life, he would acknowledge it all the time.
At the very least, people deserve straight answers, not podcasts about how stressful Washington is. Anyway, you've seen the clips. You've heard the arguments from all sides. What do you think?